That's a good question. What are the inherent limitations of a McPherson Strut car versus an Audi Multi-Link?
Man, good questions this week.
Yeah, the McPherson does a lot of things well, but and you actually see some pretty world-class sports cars come with McPherson Struts. For example, like Porsches for a long time. I think the 996 Turbo, maybe the 997 Turbo, both have a McPherson Strut front suspension. Audis and Volkswagens did for a very long time. In the vintage Audi days, say the Audi 4000 Quattro, Coupe Quattro, or Quattro, all that, or S4s, those cars all had McPherson Strut, very simple McPherson Strut suspensions.
Basically, any Honda on the road for a very long time.
And when Audi came out with the B5 chassis, it was a revelation for the Audi community because we finally had a proper multi-link suspension that we could use to create a great handling car if we wanted to. Not that the older cars don't handle well, but the problem with a McPherson Strut is the strut becomes an integral part of the suspension. And that's why you see McPherson Strut have big, thick shafts on them and very strong valving inside the strut body. The strut body itself is manufactured from a thick steel because that strut is now not just between two, control arms resisting the movement of the suspension. It's now an integral part of the suspension, and it's essentially the upper link of the suspension. And so it's supporting the top side of the tire and wheel bearing knuckle assembly, and then there's a lower control arm supporting the bottom side. So the knuckle has to be supported by at least two triangulated links, and the strut, which goes up into the strut housing, is mostly rigidly fixed with the strut mount. And so the whole suspension just moves up and down in a linear fashion on this strut. The problem is, as the suspension compresses, the camber cannot change. And so you have a problem with these cars. They don't really have a camber curve. And as the suspension compresses, there's no additional camber to give the tire more grip on the road surface. This is where a multi-link come in. There's a camber curve, and so as the suspension compresses, also more camber is generated. This is why on B5 and newer cars, when we lower the cars, we also get more negative camber. On a McPherson Strut car, for reference, if you could lower the thing 4 inches, the camber doesn't change. It just the strut's just going from here to here. The tire's not moving. Nothing's changing. So this is the big benefit with multi-link suspension. Audi for a long time has used a virtual steering axis as well, and so the way the front suspension turns and pivots with steering inputs also optimizes the toe and camber of the two tires, the caster, all that stuff's impacted by that. So what you find is like supercars and the finest handling cars in the world all have some type of multi-link suspension. But you can do a lot with a strut car, McPherson Strut. But the benefit of McPherson Struts is the simplicity and probably the cost. They're tough, they're durable because they're so heavy duty, but they do leave a lot to be desired for performance. You could do a corollary with, say, a lot of people know about Mustangs, and Mustangs used to have solid rear axles. The solid rear axle is very compromised in different ways than the McPherson Strut, but it has a host of issues. And so when the Mustang finally went with the IRS, the independent rear suspension, it really took the handling of those cars to a new level. And then really old Volkswagens, not really even really old, but say most Volkswagens through the 90s, and a lot of Audi, front-wheel drive Audis too, had this twist beam rear axle, also very compromised. And so you see kind of in the Mark V generation, Audi went with a full independent rear suspension, and that was like kind of a new era of handling and performance for these cars as well.